before you comment, hear me out. What is up, Finn fans? So yes, like I said, before you comment, hear me out. Listen to what I got to say, because the title is probably, I don't know what I made the title yet, but I know it's probably has something to do with the hot seat. Has something to do with McDaniel, Boyer, and Greer. Are they on the hot seat? This, and that. Whatever it is. And I know some people are going to jump to the comment section before actually watching the video. It's happened. I get it. But hear me out before you start either bashing me for even having McDaniel's name in the situation or his picture in the thumbnail or whatever. Just hear me out. Before we jump into that, I do have to shout out some new members. And that is Greg Sousa. Hope I said your name right. David Donaldson, Scott Webb, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you guys so much for becoming members. I just broke 13,000 on Twitter. Thank you guys for the people who've went over, follow me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. So if I'm not here, which I'm here minimum 6 days a week, if I'm not here and you want to get in contact with me or just chat with me, I'm on Twitter. And I just broke 13,000, and I appreciate the crap out of everyone who followed me over there. It sucks. The check mark isn't a thing anymore that you earn. You could just pay the $8 and get the check mark, and you get the benefits of that. But back in the day when I first, like last year, when I was really grinding and trying to get, even the beginning of this year, grinding to get my followers up and working hard to try to get that check mark, now it's not a thing anymore. And I was thinking, hey, I hit 13. Maybe I could possibly get the original one. No, it's gone. So now you essentially just pay for the check mark. But it is what it is. I do thank you guys for following me. And they were almost at 40K here. We're less than 1,500 from 40,000 here. Crazy. I'm going to do something crazy for you guys once we hit 40K. Probably do another giveaway. I didn't mean to rhyme that. But let's jump into what the title of this video is. Now, Armando Salguero, if you guys probably know who he is, he came out with an article essentially talking about who is on the hot seat on certain teams. And he goes through a list of teams, and he goes to the Miami Dolphins. He thinks that the Miami Dolphins have some coaches and front office people that are on the hot seat. And rightfully so. We started at 8-3. We are now sitting at 8-8 with the potential to go to 8-9. We're on a 5-game losing streak, and a lot of things are going wrong. So, I'm going to read you what he says, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. So again, this is what I do on this channel if you're new. I give you the facts. I give you the information that I get. I let you come to your own conclusion. I don't push an agenda towards you, and then I tell you my opinion. You can agree, disagree when we comment and talk in the comment section below. It's a great community, non-hostile. I don't get angry with you guys. I don't yell at you guys. But I do get angry with the team, and sometimes I'll yell at the team. But this is what Armando had to say. He says, if they win their season finale and sneak into the playoffs, owner Stephen Ross might look the other way on those 5 consecutive December to January losses, because it'll feel more like a skid than a collapse. Possible. Stephen Ross is that type of guy. But if the Dolphins go from 8-3 to 8-9 and not in the playoffs, everyone's job is at risk. General manager Chris Greer made a dozen bold moves in 2022 and took a step backwards out of the playoffs. Again, was nowhere near what Ross expected. The quarterback Greer drafted is not durable. Bradley Chubb, whom Greer added in a trade, has not delivered. And many first-round picks Greer has led to one question: where's the playoffs? First-year coach Mike McDaniel is a great guy, but what happened to rally the team late in the year to stop the bleeding, and what makes him better choice than maybe another run at Sean Payton? If McDaniel survives, there's no guarantee for defensive coordinator Josh Boyer, according to a club source. Finally, the Dolphins have to make a decision on Tua Tagovailoa. Are they willing to run it back with him as the starter when he's hasn't been able to stay healthy? And let's just say Aaron Rodgers really meant what he said 2 weeks ago about playing in Miami. If that's serious, Ross will be intrigued. Now, reading that, I thought to myself, let me play devil's advocate. Now, do I think... Now, Tua Tagovailoa is a whole different video in itself. It is a video that I'm going to make on its own. I did one for every quarterback, like Ryan Tannehill, when we traded him, or even before we traded him, the season ended. I made a specific video just about Ryan Tannehill, about Fitzpatrick. Quarterbacks are their own video. Now this, the hot seat, right? He brings up Chris Greer, brings up Josh Boyer, and he brings up Mike McDaniel. I'm going to kind of talk about them in order of who I think should be the most in trouble. And then at the end of this, I'll tell you really what I think. So let's start with Chris Greer, right? He brings up Chris Greer, and he brings up some valid points. Should Chris Greer be on the hot seat, and should Chris Greer's job be in jeopardy if the Dolphins go on a 6-game losing streak and do not make the playoffs? Now look at Chris Greer, what he's done, right? Since 2019, and in my opinion, 2019 is when, for me anyway, you can really start looking at Chris Greer and what he is capable of and what he has done, right? Because in 2016, it was a 3-headed monster-ish with Tannenbaum, him, and Adam Gase. Adam Gase had way too much control. Tannenbaum had a lot of control, and then there was kind of Chris Greer kind of sitting there. So since 2019, Chris Greer has used 6 first-round picks, 4 second-round picks, and 4 third-round picks. He's had a sprinkle of, 5th, 6th, 7th in there, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th in there, but the meat of it is the 6th, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rds, and he's had 14 of them. 14 of those picks in the past 4 years. 14 of them. Cap space with spending, right? 2019, they didn't do much spending. 2019 was more about tearing it down, building up the cap space, the draft picks, all that stuff, and trying to build for the future. But in 2020 is when all of a sudden they were like, all right, we got the money. We're going to start building what Brian Flores wants. And he spent $236.8 million in free agency in 2020. 2021, they weren't as active. They did make moves. They let players go that I think they shouldn't have. The team take a huge step back. They went 1-7 in 2021. But then in 2022, this past offseason, they spent $239.1 million. They made crazy trades going after Tyreek Hill, like Armando said, getting Bradley Chubb, signing him to a fat contract. They made the moves to make this team and build around Tua. They gave the weapons around Tua. They built the offensive line in front of Tua. They were like, we need to worry and focus on the offense. And then the defense started to whittle away. So again, in 2021, the Dolphins started 1-7, right? They had a horrible offensive line. Tua essentially had Mike Gesicki, but Mike Gesicki wasn't always on the field. And then he had Jalen Waddle, and Jalen Waddle would get doubled constantly. That 1-7 start was horrific. Like I said, before that started, the amount of first-round picks that the Dolphins used, the $236.8 million in cap space the year before, and you're starting the season at 1-7. You can go back, when they lost to the Atlanta Falcons, I was done. I said, if you're going to fire Brian Flores, you need to fire Chris Greer. It isn't just one or the other. They both need to go because they're both the problem that this team that was 10-6 the year before is starting 1-7. It was a horrific collapse. And then obviously, we have the winning streak, and they ended up going 9-8. Everyone was like, oh, back-to-back winning seasons. Oh, blah, blah, blah. First time since, yeah. It's like, coming last or coming third or whatever in a race, and then you get a participation trophy. It don't mean squat until you get into the playoffs. So, it's nice to have back-to-back winning seasons, but equated to nothing. So again, that happened. And now this year, start 8-3, all of a sudden it's like, all right, Chris Greer's doing his thing. He was wheeling and dealing. He was bringing in the pieces. It was helping. And now we're on a 5-game losing streak with a win and hopefully help from Buffalo to get into the playoffs. So Chris Greer did do some good. The Laramie Tunsil trade, building up a lot of cap space, building up a lot of draft picks, making some moves that worked, drafting some players that did work in Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, Mike Gesicki, but Mike Gesicki's kind of before their time, Brandon Jones, Robert Hunt. Like, there was some draft picks that worked. So there's that could help him stay. But he's been running with this thing. And again, if you want to say he's had, more power from 2016, then he's been doing this for about 6 to 7 years, it gets to a point that Stephen Ross needs to make some drastic changes. And I said that when I talked about in the video the fact that we're on a 5-game losing streak. If the Dolphins don't make the playoffs, then there needs to be some drastic changes, and that's what this video is about. This video is about if they don't make the playoffs. I think Chris Grier should be fired. If the Dolphins don't make the playoffs and you aren't cognitive enough and you aren't recognizing enough that the defense and the secondary, you had no one behind, you just dealt with the Byron Jones situation horribly, and just the secondary was just garbage, and then Bradley Chubb, why is he not producing like he was with Denver? All of this stuff, he needs to be fired. He's tried and tried and tried. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. He survived the Adam Gase firing. Then he survived the Ryan Flores firing. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. This is your third strike. You're out. So to me, Chris Grier, he should be fired. Next, Josh Boyer. Josh Boyer was with this defense for a hot minute. Came with Brian Flores over. A lot of people were wondering, was Flores calling the defense last year? Because in 2020, the defense was top notch. 2021, they took a huge step back in the beginning of the year. Then towards the end of the year, they started getting their stuff together. Was that because Flores took over? Was that because Alexander took over? What was that whole situation? Well, obviously, we now know what the situation was. But Josh Boyer, right? Some people think Josh Boyer should get a pass because of the injuries he's dealt with, which every time we brought a corner in, they got injured. From Alexander, Trill Williams, Nick Needham, Brendan Jones, Byron Jones, whatever he's going through. One guy after an Emmanuel Ogbah, injury. So right now the defense is sitting at 27th in the NFL allowing points, 20th in the NFL allowing yards. They're 30th in the NFL in turnovers, 27th in pass. They're 8th in rush, which is fantastic, 24th in third down conversions, and that is why they're not getting off the field. A lot of people want to blame the offense for the fact that the Dolphins defense is on the field so much. Nope. It's because they're 24th in the NFL in allowing third downs, and they're 26th in the NFL in red zone touchdowns, allowing 61.4%. So I look at that, and that's hot garbage. That's bottom 5, bottom whatever of the NFL, besides your rushing defense. It's bad. And again, well, Doug, they're injured. Got to cut them some slack. They're injured. And, me and Big O go back and forth with that. They're injured, and I get that they're injured. But if you're a good, competent defensive coordinator, you know how to move things around. You know how to help your players, right? The Miami Dolphins have 12 players on reserve/injured. The Denver Broncos have 23 players that are reserve/injured. You know what they're ranked on defense? They're 10th in points, 7th in yards, 13th in turnovers, 12th in pass, 12th in rush, 2nd in third down conversion, and 4th in red zone. And they got rid of Bradley Chubb. This is as of today. This isn't like, this is as of today. Those are the stats of the Denver Broncos, who have 23 players that on injured reserve or injured. So then, they do have Patrick Surtain Jr. They do have some people. Again, they got rid of Bradley Chubb, but we'll ignore that. Okay, I'll take a step back. And we'll go to another team that didn't have a lot of their key players for most of the year. And a lot of the reason they weren't winning was because of the defense. And that is the Chargers. 15 players reserved and injured. You know where they're ranked? They're 18th in points, 19th in yards, 12th in turnovers, 6th in pass defense, 27th in rush, 16th in third downs, and 8th in the red zone. That is much, besides obviously the rush defense, that is much better than the Dolphins defense. So I get it. I get that you're dealing with a ton of injuries in the secondary, but so are the Denver Broncos and so are the Chargers, and they have a way better defense. See where I'm getting at? Sometimes the cook in the kitchen doesn't know what he's doing. To me, Josh Boyer, regardless if the Dolphins make the playoffs or not, you're gone at the end of the year. Thank you for trying. It obviously was Brian Flores and not you. Good luck. Gone. Last and final, Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, the head coach, right? He takes blame for this 5-game losing streak, and he will take a big portion of the blame if the Miami Dolphins do not make the playoffs, right? The Dolphins started 8-3, and then all of a sudden the wheels fell off after Houston, right? You go to play San Fran, they're a tough team. Guys were open, Tua was off. I'm not blaming Mike McDaniel for that, even though some of the play call in some situations bothered me. It was mostly on Tua. He was just off, missing wide open guys. That's not on Mike McDaniel. Chargers game. Dolphins were prepared for that. It's not like they had to travel back and forth. They stayed in California. So you're facing one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL, and you barely ran the ball. Tua looked horrible in that game. Then in Buffalo, they played much better in Buffalo. It just so happened that the defense let them down on that last drive, whereas Buffalo ate up a good portion, like about 4 minutes, and kicked the game-winning field goal, especially when they had to deal with the stupid pass interference call. Then you look at the Packers game, gave up on the run too soon. You look at the Patriots game, gave up on the run too soon. There's the play calling too. He got cute in some moments. He would throw screens when he really didn't need to. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. He would try to bunch formation, play action, or this or that. And it just, the play call wasn't there. And then there is poor clock management. He's not very good with his timeouts, whether it's the plays getting called in and the play clock running down, so they have to call timeouts, they take and delay a game. Where's the disconnect there? In the beginning of the year, he said he had a hard time getting the plays out to Tua, so there was a bunch of times Tua was improving. That is actually a quote from him. Clock management, undisciplined. The Miami Dolphins have committed 130 penalties. That is number 1 in the NFL. This team is incredibly undisciplined, from illegal shift formations, which should be his expertise, to holding, false starts, defensive pass interference, offsides. Undisciplined, and that comes to the head coach. But here is a big, fat, ugly, pimply but. He's a rookie head coach. This is his first year calling plays. This is his first year being a head coach. There are going to be hiccups in his game, and he needs to learn to do better. Me personally, will Mike McDaniel be fired at the end of the year? No. I think if they make the playoffs, it's a definite no. If they don't make the playoffs, I wouldn't. But again, we know how Stephen Ross is. He wants to make the big splash. He wants to make the big move. And if Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh want to come to Miami, I don't know how he says no to that, especially if he is willing to fire Chris Grier and give these guys more power. But me personally, I would not fire Mike McDaniel. I think him taking the offense from being bottom 25 to 10th in points for, 6th in yards, and 3rd in pass is really good. So me personally, I would not fire Mike McDaniel. So I'm firing Chris Grier, I'm firing Josh Boyer, but I'm not firing Mike McDaniel. But then comes the idea of you're bringing in GM. A lot of times when you bring in a GM, you want to bring in a new head coach. But that's just the way I feel. Comment below. Let me know how you guys feel. I gave you all the facts, all the information. With how I feel, I'm very interested to see how you guys feel. I'll see you guys later today, me and Big O. I'm going to talk to him about this, get his opinions on it, and all that good stuff. But on that, like usual, stay classy and fins up.